When the money stops flowing and someone wakes up with nothing, what will happen? Because this crisis did not develop gradually, as is currently being asserted. Overnight it broke. Accounts were active for a split second. 1 minute, companies were open and payments were being made, and then everything was blocked. There is only silence and frozen accounts, no warnings, no possibility for negotiation, and no access. And at that moment, the apparently panic spread. Rasheeda's action, according to the story, immediately shifted the balance of power, not with a dispute or a public declaration, but with documentation, legal action, and financial management. Because money is frequently the first thing people rush to secure when trust breaks down. Jasmine Washington, who maintained that the freeze didn't only impact Kirk, was on the opposing side of that judgment. Her whole world was erased. She claimed that once the accounts were frozen, the rent would not be paid, access would be blocked, and promises would instantly vanish. According to her, everything was lost to me. Because suspending accounts isn't an emotional decision. That's what makes this moment combustible. It is deliberate. It's planned. When people think that the damage has already been done and that the only thing that needs to be protected is what is left, they take this action. Furthermore, when someone claims that they lost everything as a result, it creates a risky inquiry. What first made them financially dependent? This is not about getting even. Leverage is at play here. Additionally, we're dissecting what actually occurs when money becomes the preferred weapon. Who is cut off? Who is protected? And why? Financial quiet frequently speaks louder than any debate, due to the fact that when the accounts freeze, the truth typically comes out. As the story now develops, the decision to freeze Kirk's accounts was not made on a whim. The containment strategy was deliberate. It wasn't threatening, shouting, or issuing orders in public. Control was the issue. Controlling finances is the quickest way to prevent harm from spreading, particularly when confidence has already been betrayed. Those in close proximity to the Rasheeda didn't make a loud sound. She worked quickly. Lawyers were contacted, documents were filed, and in a matter of hours, the previously permitted access was gone. This move was extremely disruptive because it revealed how many individuals were linked to those accounts without official security. When an account freezes, it instantly affects everyone connected to it. Promises become liabilities, rent doesn't clear, and payments cease. Jasmine asserts that the freezing severely damaged her stability overnight, in addition to having an impact on Kirk's way of life. The plot takes a darker turn at that point. Since her financial survival was predicated on access that she never really controlled, it would appear that her reality crumbled the instant Rasheeda had the funds. The expression "I lost everything" has such resonance because of this. Large weight. Dependency is implied, but not financial or emotional dependency. And financial reliance, particularly when unofficial, is inherently precarious. Contracts, ownership, or legal rights did not protect Jasmine, according to the story. She had access, and it can be taken away at any time. It's not an incident. When money transfers without documentation, power operates in this way. According to Rasheeda, the purpose of freezing the accounts was not punishment. It had to do with conservation. Protecting assets, particularly shared assets, especially businesses, and especially money that can vanish silently if left unchecked, becomes the top priority if concerns about loyalty, honesty, and financial transparency arise. Unsecure. The story argues that this conduct marked a change from emotional response to legal stance. The dynamics of the relationship also permanently shift once legal positioning starts. Making sure that freezing accounts doesn't cause havoc is crucial in this situation. It exposes it. It reveals who was independent and who was not. Who was it? Ownership, who had access, and who was depending more on assurances than on security. The narrative states that, at this point, the focus of the plot shifted from infidelity or treachery to infrastructure and who were standing on borrowed footing and who had established their lives on solid basis. When the money stopped flowing, the truth began to come to light. Through consequences, not through debates. And the consequences just come. They don't bargain. Jasmine's claim that she lost everything is not only sentimental language, based on the story under discussion. It is illuminating because when someone else freezes their accounts and they lose everything, it instantly reveals how their financial life was set up. This was not a matter of convenience or discretionary spending. This has to do with reliance. And reliance, particularly unofficial and unrecorded, disintegrates as soon as access is taken away. The allegations were that Jasmine was not shedding luxuries. She was losing the necessities, a place to live, security, and consistency. And you don't experience that level of loss unless your foundation was never yours in the first place. Why this particular moment is so? It's unsettling because it completely reinterprets the relationship between Kirk Frost and Jasmine Washington. If her financial life was based on contracts she didn't manage, accounts she didn't own, and money that wasn't lawfully, the connection was never balanced between hers and his. It was subject to conditions. Furthermore, conditional assistance only seems secure when no one else steps in. As stated in the story, the second, that condition immediately disintegrated when Rasheeda legally intervened. This explains why the freeze seemed so abrupt. The impact was abrupt, but the planning was not. Financial systems stop abruptly rather than gradually. When they pause, they don't inquire if anyone is prepared. According to the story, Jasmine's response went beyond simple shock. That was concerning realization. Understanding that access does not equate to ownership, that promises do not equate to protection, and that relying on someone else's financial infrastructure puts you at risk of losing everything with just one choice. From Rasheeda's vantage point, the action makes strategic sense. The focus moved to containment as it became evident that funds were being utilized to maintain parallel lives. Emotion is not the reason for freezing accounts. The goal is to halt the bleeding out, particularly when it comes to shared assets, businesses, and brand revenue. As stated in the story, Rasheeda didn't only get funding. Leverage was obtained by her. Since power changes and people who previously relied on quiet suddenly need answers, interactions alter once finances are locked. People tend not to discuss this section. Financial freezes reveal the facts rather than only punish. They demonstrate who had legal protection and who was surviving with consent. Jasmine's statement was not intended to be accusatory, according to the story. Its purpose was to describe the effect. It did, however, highlight how precarious her situation was at all times. And the narrative shifts from drama to structure once that vulnerability is made known. It belonged to whom? Nobody knew. And who didn't? That throughout. As the story finally emerges, the account freeze was more than a response to the pandemonium. It was a recognition that things had gotten out of hand and into a realm beyond which trust could operate. Consequences. Money freezes are not fleeting feelings. These signals are lawful. They express without using words that the relationship is no longer private. Conversion of formal protection through discussion. And once that change occurs, there is no easy way to return to the previous state of affairs. The regulations are always changing. This particular moment is crucial because it eliminates ambiguity. Silent compromise, explanation, and denial were all acceptable prior to the freeze. Following the freeze, those choices become fewer. The value of money has changed. No longer are decisions made informally. The story claims that this made all those concerned face realities they had managed to escape. It forced Jasmine to acknowledge the true vulnerability of her financial situation. Kirk had to come to terms with the fact that the legal system now limited the access he had previously had, as well as for it meant sacrificing perception for preservation. Rasheeda. That's why sentences tend to feel harsher than remarks said in public. Statements are debatable. Doesn't freeze. The discussion instantly turns into a practical one when accounts are locked. Bills, commitments, accountability, and ownership. As the story goes, this is where panic heightened because intentions are irrelevant to the practical ramifications. Sorry doesn't get a response from them. They want a solution. Moreover, lawyers, documentation, and words that take emotion out of the picture are nearly always involved in resolution at this level. Time is another important detail. The freeze's quickness indicates preparation. It was not a heated disagreement that led to this action. The instant a line was crossed, the move was prepared to be carried out. Awareness is implied by that preparation. Awareness that financial resources were being spent in ways that needed to be addressed. Recognizing that waiting would only make recovery more difficult. As stated in the story, this is what makes the final freeze sensation. It wasn't meant to startle anyone. It was about preventing more harm. Relationships change if money is frozen. Talks turn cautious. Access becomes restricted. Additionally, rather than acting out of trust, all parties begin acting out of self-interest. In line with the though no one has yet to say it aloud, storytelling is the point at which individuals recognize that the story they have been living inside is ending. Since financial action is more powerful than emotional response, and one of the loudest things you can do is to freeze accounts. The story claims that after the accounts were frozen, money became the main point of the message rather than a supporting element. There was no more need for argument. Intentions and emotions didn't need to be explained. It was a clear action. The circumstances were no longer suitable for private handling. Financial lockdowns are an indication that trust has already been betrayed. After then, everything is about minimizing loss rather than fixing it. Link. The emotional shock is said to have been most severe here. It was because of what the freeze verified in actuality, not because it was unanticipated in theory. The financial backing of parallel lives was confirmed. It proved that access had taken the role of accountability and that a person who thought they were safe was in fact standing on the ground. That the ability to be dragged away in one night. The story claims that although this insight struck each participant in a different way, its significance was evident for all. According to reports, the freeze for Jasmine turned presumptions into outcomes. It turned out that what had seemed stable was only ephemeral. What seemed like a future was abruptly reduced to conditionality, and what felt like support was exposed as immediate survival. Because of this, the story goes, her response was centered on loss rather than treachery. It hurts to lose money, but it hurts more to lose the appearance of control. The emotional damage extends beyond money when someone discovers they never really owned the life they were leading. It was said that Kirk's flexibility was taken away by the freeze. Previously smooth money, it was no longer a tool for overissues. Now, explanation was needed for solutions rather than money. And when patterns are present, explanation becomes more difficult. The story claims that this is where the pressure behind the scenes increased, because every previous choice becomes subject to review if funds are stopped. Every transfer is called into doubt. All the arguments become flimsy. And Rasheeda understood the message. Asset protection was a must. It had to be. The story claims that this action was not motivated by retaliation or humiliation. It was about making sure that whatever came next wouldn't jeopardize what she had worked so hard to create. It was not an aggressive freeze in that sense. It was defensive. Instead of using emotional language, a boundary was established in financial ink. Because of this, the story claims that the freeze was a watershed. Everyone was compelled to cease acting and begin adjusting to reality. Because the story stops slipping when the money stops flowing. Facts, accountability, ownership, and repercussions are settled. And after that, there is no version of events where everything just returns to normal. No additional words are required to convey the message, which has already been made obvious and everlasting. Said, the story is no longer about who said what, or who feels mistreated at this point. Everything went from feeling to consequence the instant the accounts were frozen. Since suspending funds is a choice, it is not a warning. According to this, any trust that once existed is insufficient to safeguard the interests involved. And when someone claims to have lost, therefore, it raises a difficult topic that is now unavoidable. What percentage of that existence was ever really theirs? Financial decisions are therefore more important than public opinion. People can use words to lie. They can act composed. They may postpone justifications. But emotion is not how money works. It obeys orders, documents as well as ownership, and when that authority is transferred, the power dynamic is shown for what it has always been. Someone was safe, someone was reliant, and at last, someone was compelled to protect what ought to have been protected for ages. The painful thing about this circumstance is that it occurs more frequently than most people realize. Until they aren't, relationships based on access rather than structure usually seem stable. Until one choice takes away the safety net and makes clear who was balancing on borrowed permission and who was standing on firm ground. Punishment is not the point of this. It's a matter of reality setting in. It is up to you to make a decision now. Do you think the accounts being frozen was an harsh response that made things worse, or a necessary step to save assets? Does losing everything indicate that someone was harmed, or does it indicate that the foundation was never safe to begin with? And who, in your opinion, was the intended recipient? When money becomes the message, post your opinions in the comments section. Be analytical rather than sentimental. To help others discover the deeper layers, please like the video. If this explanation was helpful to you, if you believe that financial power dynamics merit sharing greater attention than rumors. Furthermore, get more in-depth breakdowns by subscribing. That emphasis order, authority, and what individuals disclose when the money stops transferring. Due to the fact that when the accounts freeze and the truth remains, it's at last becomes unavoidable.